How's the food today? It's perfect. By a show of hands, just for fun, who was here yesterday? There you go. All right. It's a great crowd. So, sorry, my name is Marlon Miller. It's such a rare name in these parts. So I'll tell you a little bit about why I'm here, as we did yesterday, and I'm going to introduce everybody on at the table, and we're just going to jump in. We're going to have a good conversation, just talk about life and farming and the past and just how things are changing and how they're not changing. So back to a little bit about us. My wife and I have adopted all 4 of our kids. The oldest one is on the autistic spectrum, and the 3 youngest all have Down syndrome. And 10, 12 years ago, we wanted to do something in print that talks about the beauty of adoption, talks about the dignity of kids that have special needs. And we also do a bit of homesteading. And so over these last 10 years, Plain Values has morphed into a lot more than it was. When I started everything, I couldn't see very far. And so today it is very, very different than it was back then. But it has been a real joy. We've been able to play a role in about 15, 16 different adoptions, and it has just been a real treat. So we have a booth here as well over in the Amish Resources tent. You can come say hey to a bunch of our team. And if you like what you see, we would love to have you subscribe. A good chunk of our subscription goes to our nonprofit, and then that nonprofit, money, cash, whatever you want to call it, goes to help adoptions around the world. And it's a joy. I'm going to jump into the table here, and we will talk in a second. I'm going to introduce Jerry. Jerry D. Miller is a farmer from just down the road. How was your walk home last night? Very good. You said you live about 2.5 miles due that way. Due that way. So he just walked home. He is a farmer. He's a writer. Just a thoughtful guy, and it has just been a real joy to get to know him. David Klein, across the table, is, I think what I said yesterday fit well. You and your wife, Elsie, you've lived on your farm your entire life, been married for 55 years, and you and Elsie have never bought milk, eggs, chicken, and honey. You have your hives. David Klein has hives, everybody. Anyway, so he publishes Farming Magazine for 21 years, and they're also here. You can see their work in the booth across from ours. And he's authored 4 books. My wife and I love reading David's books. They're great. They're thoughtful. They're just fantastic. Very Wendell Berry-ish, if I can say that. And then the guy in the middle is Ivan Keim. Ivan is a farmer. He is a builder. And he happens to be my next-door neighbor. And so we go back pretty far. And it's a real treat to have Ivan here. So we're going to jump right in. David and Jerry were here yesterday, and so I'm going to start with Ivan, and I'm going to ask him a couple questions, and I'm just going to ask you guys to chime in and add to the conversation with anything that you didn't say yesterday. Let's not bore the folks that were here yesterday, which I'm sure that we wouldn't. However, Ivan, here we go. How do you see your children being part of your homestead, and how you pass down the values that you and Emma have to them on the hill there?
So passing our values down through what we do, some of us, obviously, I'm kind of the middle guy here, make our living on farming, and others just do it. Do we call it as a hobby? But I'd say probably our passion. But I'd like to go back a little bit, and for those of you, a lot of people think, the Amish have always homestead, and that's what we do. Well, and David can probably correct my numbers, but 20, 30 years ago, 90% of the Amish were farmers and 10% were infrastructure, other industries. Back when my wife and I grew up, I'm going to guess we were about half and half. Today, it's less than 10% are on the farm. But our values and our culture has always been very, very rooted in agriculture. So now if dad's working at a furniture shop, or if he's on a construction crew, he's making enough money, they can buy 5 acres, and the kids don't have to work. It really adjusts our culture as we continue to go down that road, and it brings in, it brings a completely different lifestyle. So as we start thinking, where's our culture going to go if we continue that lifestyle? So I guess one of my passions is as a vision, we have to create a vision and understand where we're going. King Solomon said, where there is no vision, people perish. And we've heard that all morning, is creating a vision and going down that direction. Not just create a vision, but we actually have to do it. So some of the things that we've done over the last couple years, our children are, the oldest one's 13, the youngest is 9, is last summer we gave them the opportunity to choose an animal, and it's theirs. Justin talked this morning about involving your children. So we have chickens, we have pigs, we have broilers, we have ponies and ducks and bandies and bunnies and horses and cows, and so, and we're doing that on 12 acres. You can do it on 5 acres. You may not have all of that, but so our youngest one choose a pig. Well, guess what happened the first time that we had a litter of piglets? So this was on a kind of a cool, rainy morning, and it was Sunday. It was our off Sunday, and we were at home. So she kept checking her pig. She kept coming in, and all at once she came tearing in and tore open the door and said, "The pig's got piglets." And we were able to go out and just enjoy that moment. And, you know, kids can spend hours in the yard just playing with bunnies. And I asked the question, we all know that the world is trying to raise their children and entertain them with digital. Is it working? It's not working. So we have to be thoughtful, and as we establish that culture in our home, and we establish those values and be very, very intentional, because our lifestyle is pulling us in another direction. But as we create our homestead around a lifestyle that we want our children to grow into and enjoy. And the other day they were just, we were talking about, do our children, do they want to continue to do this as they get older and are 15, 16? And they're like, well, yeah, because we just want to, let's just do more, or, we do more bigger things, and that type of stuff is, instead of bunnies, they may have some more pigs, or instead of bunnies, they may have some part of the beef cattle. And there's just a lot of different things that you can do, but if we don't do it, and we just talk about it, and we think we should, then they probably won't get inspired about it. And it's the culture that we want to pass on to the next generation. And it also gives us the opportunity, as we're working with them side by side and helping them with their little enterprises, to teach them the values of what we are, why we do things. There was a gentleman who told me one time, don't wait until your children are 15 or 16 years old to try and tell them why you do what you do, because by then they've already kind of molded their thought process. But what better opportunity do we have as parents to grow alongside them and tell them why we do what we do? But we have to actually believe it and do it. So that's the challenge that I have for all of us, is do it, do something, start somewhere, and just do it.
Yeah. David? Jerry, there you go.
Well, to add to that, I'm a little bit older than Ivan is, And on the farm now at home, it is not so much anymore my children, but now it's the grandchildren. And my little grandson, he's 5 years old, and he shows up on the farm, and the second he walks in the door, it's, Dottie, let's go do this. Dottie, when are we going to go get the cows? Dottie, what are you going to do here? And if I take that little boy, and we go out and turn the cows out to pasture, and he stands there, he opens the gate, he's got little muck boots on that are exactly like mine, he never misses a cow patty for fear he doesn't get dirty enough, but he opens that gate, and he lets those cows out to pasture. There is something intrinsic value that you cannot convey through a Game Boy. It is impossible. And I know from the bottom of my heart, I cannot completely explain that, but I know that if I am able to pass those values or that on to my grandchildren, eventually it will influence who they become. And to me, it is just so valuable. It is so valuable. I could tell you a little story about my son if we have time. It's very humorous. We repeat it many times at home. When we were young on the farm, we had an old Jersey cow that laid down. It was time to freshen, and the first calf was backwards, and I completely forgot my 5-year-old son. And he was sitting in the corner of the box stall, and he was watching. His eyes were huge. And I was in the dirt and the grime, and I finally delivered the first calf dead. Then I realized there's another one in there, and we finally delivered the second one dead. It was a scene of despair and gloom. I stood there in the box stall, I looked at that cow, and I looked at my 2 dead calves. And my son comes up, and he's 5 years old. And he grabs my hand, and he looks up into my eyes, and he said, Dad, said, if I was a cow, I'd want to be